Look back at the flooding in eastern Kentucky. You look at the tornadoes in London and in the Somerset area. Where do we stand right now in rebuilding those communities, and what's your message to those families impacted?
Well, my message is we're not going to stop until every structure and every life is rebuilt. And if you need proof of that, today is the four-year anniversary of the tornadoes that cut through Western Kentucky. And yesterday, I handed out 4 additional sets of keys because the last family that gets help is just as important as the first. So we're working across Kentucky because so many areas were hit this year to try to make sure that they have the assistance and the help. We were able to secure federal approvals at a time that it is now a lot harder to where people could get some individual assistance. But we're going to make sure that we are there with those families through all the difficulties, and that includes the 14 individuals that lost their lives in that UPS plane crash, the 14 families that'll be grieving this Christmas. I hope they know that we're not going anywhere, and we'll carry their grief, or some of it if they'll let us, for the days and the weeks and the years ahead.
I wanted to ask you about that next. It was a tragic night for our community and really across the state. What was it like for you?
So I was at work in Frankfurt, about to head to a different event, and somebody told me that there'd been a plane crash. We turned on the news, and within about 30 seconds, I turned and said, "We're headed to Louisville." On the way, I was able to check in with the surrounding businesses. I talked to Ford's CEO because that could have hit the Ford plant. It was very close with probably about 1,000 workers that were inside. I found out later it directly hit a friend of mine, Sean Garber's business, and took the lives of 3 of his employees. On the way to, you never know exactly what you're going to find, but that as governor, you've got to be there, and you've got to show calm but leadership. You've got to make sure that all the different groups are working together, and you've got to make sure that people get information in a timely way. People are going to be scared. They're going to want to know, was there anything toxic on the plane? And thankfully there wasn't, and we got that news out fast. They want to know what the likelihood of the spread of the fire is going to be, or the contamination. And so my goal was to make sure that night we had a grip on all of those things, and then just a great job done by the mayor and his team and all of those fire departments. You want to talk about working together, 50 different fire trucks from at least 13, I think, different fire departments all acting as one unit. Think about how big that blast was and how hot it was burning and how they kept it from spreading. That's a pretty major accomplishment that I know that they're proud of. I talked to a lot of them a couple days after.
There were so many businesses in that path of destruction there, many of which suffered some damage that is leaving them without jobs right now and without the ability to go back to work. How is the state supporting some sort of long-term economic recovery plan for the communities that are affected by what happened in that crash?
So UPS has a couple of funds, and they're required by law to help step in and assist some of these businesses. And from what I hear, they are. What we're doing is looking for any additional ways that we can help. What is not covered? And then we're making sure that we're monitoring the environmental cleanup, that we're making sure that the site is safe in the remediation, making sure that people in the surrounding community are safe. Our emergency management was there for a number of days. And so right now, the state itself is probably in a secondary role to UPS, which is out there working with a number of these businesses, as well as the city and some of its divisions.
Shifting gears now, I want to talk to you briefly just about JCPS, our state's largest school district. They're facing a massive budget deficit. Have you been following that? Have you been tracking it? What are your thoughts on that? And what are your message to the many families who are watching this, knowing that they are going to be impacted in some form or fashion?
Well, I think we're going to see deficits in budgets for public entities, states, and others throughout America. Sadly, I don't think that JCPS is the only one that's going to face it. We had what was a growing economy that, because of a number of federal actions, is not going to grow at the rate that it would have. That's going to impact school systems. That's going to impact a lot of different areas. And our goal is going to be to do the best job we can. I have confidence in the new superintendent of JCPS, but they're going to have to put their financial house in order. The goal ought to be that students and families don't feel that. And so if they're going to make a decision on facilities, it ought to be based on which facilities are safe and which ones maybe are a little too old. It ought to be based on where there are other schools that could absorb and wrap their arms around these families. I know they're going to have to make tough decisions, but I hope they always make them putting the students first.
Remember, the last question for you is one I'm pretty sure that you get a lot of all the time, and you know what I'm going to ask
What
here.
I'm asking for Christmas?
Sure, yeah, that's exactly right. Your name has been on national headlines. You've been on network news. People are wondering, are you gearing up for a presidential campaign?
Well, when I take on a job, I give it everything I have. I hope people see that as my time as governor, because where we've come from in the last 6 years, when people used to look down on Kentucky and now they're looking up to us, is pretty special for all of us as a people. This next year, I took on a job of being head of the Democratic Governors Association. So my sole focus is 36 races around the country. We've got to make sure that we're getting good leadership to people that aren't seeing it. Democratic governors create more and better jobs. They expand healthcare, not restrict it. And so that's my focus moving forward. But I am going to try to continue to be a national voice that's common sense, that finds common ground and gets things done, and make sure that Kentucky has a seat at any table.
All right. Governor, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And to everybody, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.